Wait, hold on. Where was it yesterday?
570.
It's up $100. It's almost 700.
Good. So much for the Chinese.
Yeah, it's just.
They're the ones probably buying it.
It's just bouncing back.
Good morning. Welcome to the Meltdown. Folks, things happen so fast in the market. All it takes is a little bit of verbiage and a reaction, and all of a sudden the knee-jerk reactions come to life. Now, I thought it was interesting before we closed out the show last night that the Nikkei was already showing signs of gaining steam, which it did, closed up about 270 points. So literally in the span of about 48 hours, the Nikkei moved almost 4 percentage points. For the euphoria that was spread because of quantitative easing and the tapering effect, we saw a nice recovery in the Dow, but don't forget last week it lost ground. So it was just regaining some ground. I'm going to talk about some stocks. I'm going to talk about the economy, and then I'm going to do what I usually do, and that's pull it all in so that it starts to make sense why you buy gold and silver, why you find a dealer who is not just the cheapest guy, because the cheapest guy might not have the education or the experience. He's just out there selling product, and I'll talk about that. I find it interesting that Facebook and Mr. Zuckerberg are about to liquidate a large position in Facebook. Now, from the bottom, which was in September of last year, down 50% from the IPO when it was first launched, the shares have nearly tripled in value in the last 15 months. Zuckerberg is looking to liquidate somewhere in the neighborhood, well, he's exercising an option for 60 million shares. He's liquidating 41.4 million shares to pay the taxes on the transaction. Other shareholders, other insiders are going to sell about 1.6 million shares. What that means is that initially you would see a drop, except that after the close on Friday, the S&P is going to list Facebook, and that will make the market move positively again. We're talking about a market share that is so large, this sale is going to accumulate or liquidate, if you will, approximately $3.8 billion worth of stock. Here's a company with a whole lot of young people that have got some great minds and making social media work, but the value of the company is tripled in a year. Bitcoin's one of those areas that Michael and I talk about off air most of the time. I've mentioned Bitcoin, the Chinese. People need to understand that Bitcoin is a bubble market. It's one that may continue to grow because more people are trying to maintain their privacy. However, when you're accumulating serious assets and all of a sudden you buy an apartment in Midtown Manhattan and you move $1.5 million through, quote, Bitcoin to pay for it, you're on the tax rolls. What was the purpose? You certainly can't hide the money, because if the government so chooses or the Internal Revenue so chooses, all of a sudden you're under different scrutiny. So understand that I believe Bitcoin is here to stay. And while I shared the information and Michael read the article about the Chinese not wanting to follow Bitcoin, all of a sudden Bitcoin goes from the 500 range to the 570 range, up another, Michael, did you say 100 points? So 100 points, which is, give or take a little bit, a 15% move in a day. And that's what I keep trying to explain. This is not gloom and doom. It's about looking at your portfolio and understanding that there are fundamental reasons why you add different commodities to your portfolio. Now, I've talked about, and you'll hear it periodically, bubble markets. There are two opposing opinions about real estate. Some people love it over the long haul. Some people love it to flip. It's an active part of a lot of net worth portfolios. But then so are jewelry, so are diamonds, so are watches, so are automobiles. Automobiles, Read about that this morning. The market now, according to an insurance company that insures collector vehicles, this is just one, says that the current collector car market is at about $1.3 billion a year. Now, that may seem like a really large number, and if it was in your checkbook, it would be. Of course, it wouldn't be insured. But my point is that here's a market that if you go back to 2004, the average car was about 33,000. Today, it's a little over 60,000. 8,600 cars at auction back in 2004, now over 19,000 cars. Most cars, 80% according to this source, says that they're private treaty transactions. That means you're selling it to somebody across town or across the country, not at auction. 80%. That means you could almost double this number and say the market's $3 billion. My point in bringing up the car market is that the bubble has already begun, and there's a great deal of material out there, and there's a lot of cars. There's always a new find of material. My point is that the coin market is still very, very suppressed. Now, the question comes up, whether you talk to the IMF, whether you're reading about the IMF or central banks, how much gold really is there? The debate, because of the fact that Fort Knox hasn't been opened up really since the 1950s and been audited, a lot of people wonder whether or not the gold is buried in Kentucky. Personally, the IMF believes that there are a little over 23,349 tons of gold stashed between the United States, the United Kingdom, Japan, Switzerland, the Eurozone, and that's where the IMF respectively says there's about $1.3 trillion worth of gold. Okay, so now take the 1.3 trillion, calculate worldwide debt, let alone the US's debt, and you probably get to approach maybe 500 trillion. Maybe it's really a quadrillion. My point is that the leveraged value of the banking system, the governments, the debt, lay all of it out there, and you're dealing in astronomical numbers that are all predicated on the full faith and credit of a government. Folks, we've burned $85 billion buying our own debt, and our balance sheet of $4 trillion will go down once we start, quote, liquidating the portfolio. Now, I understand the idea and the concept of quantitative easing, but the fallout from quantitative easing is going to affect the market. It's going to affect everything. I read the article this morning that 40 million Target shoppers had their credit cards breached. Hacking goes on constantly, and so you've got to monitor everything. The 10-year yield on the Treasury is now up to 2.92, and central bankers are going to liquidate gold and silver. They're going to force gold to be cheaper. And now you've got companies that have said it costs $1,000 to $1,200 to produce gold that will be shutting down. You'll get other companies that will say that the cost of production is $600 to $800. This goes back to a conversation I had about the crest cycle. When you look at the horn, because that's the way the market's going to develop, we're going to find the Dow, I said 17 to 18,000. Gold could test below 1,000. And so, is it time to sell or is it time to buy? Well, it depends how much of your net worth is already, quote, in the metals. I believe that you should be increasing your holdings. And if you chase the market down, you're not liquidating it, you're not losing any money on it. If you own gold at $1,700 or $1,900, don't sell it, you didn't lose anything. Now, if you've got a capital gain in another portion of your portfolio, it's a one-day trade. You're subject to the market change and a 2% fee. That's what I charge for you to be able to ship your metal in here. We'll sell it off at 5 o'clock in the evening. You can buy it back at 8:30 when I get back in the office. The market change, up or down, doesn't matter. This is a real trade where you're going to liquidate, take a loss, offset it against your taxes, and the next morning you can buy the product back plus my 2% fee. I watch the dollar, and the dollar is eroding on a daily basis. No, some days it'll look like it's up, but on a day where the dollar is down, the only currencies are the Canadian, the Chinese, and the Japanese currencies. Amazingly enough, we get to start talking about the effects of the NSA, and it's something that I'm going to get into a little bit deeper this afternoon. But there are countries that are so insulted that we've kicked sand in their face. One of the casualties on the surface is Boeing. They are taking a $4 billion contract right in the kazoo. The Brazilians are distraught, upset, mad, angry, and Boeing is going to lose a $4 billion contract that was a shoo-in. The effect in the economy is serious. There are people that will end up losing their jobs and being laid off. And while the government says sometime next year we could be at 6.3% unemployment, what about the long-term unemployed? How do you retrain those people? How do you get them back in the workforce? I listened to a couple of senators this morning, one on each side of the aisle, and you know what? If there was a strict majority in all three levels of government, we'd be in a bigger stalemate than we already are, and so compromise across the aisle is a, quote, good thing, according to them. Folks, we're making horrible decisions and horrible choices, and it is not a bad choice to be involved in what I do. And whether it's 5% of your net worth or 40% of your net worth, whether you're acquiring the lowest grade circulated coin sets or you're buying the nicest high-end premium quality coins. I picked on the 1881 San Francisco Morgan silver dollar that came out of the Eric Newman sale. 2 days ago, while I was doing my morning podcast, that coin was listed at $6,999. They range in Mint State 65 from what was about $7,000 all the way down in Mint State 65, NGC or PCGS graded, to about $165. That's online. You could see the transaction. By the afternoon show, the $7,000 coin was gone. So what I want to make sure I educate my clients with is that when one of the two major grading companies grades a coin, there's a market value to it. However, if you look at the bid, it's the lowest, ugliest quality coin that there is. And when a guy tells you that his spread is 4,500 bid at 5,300 ask, you wonder why I want $6,000 for a coin that's the highest end piece I've ever seen. Guys will pay 50 to 100% more for certain coins. So the judgment by an uneducated buyer, an uneducated spouse, an uneducated coin dealer is very frustrating. It frustrates me when I look online and I see a coin that I sold for $450 to a client that online is $650 to $1,000, and some dummy tells the client the coin's worth $26. Either A, he lied to the client may have lied to me, or it's an uneducated dealer that this man ran into and all of a sudden creates more chaos and more confusion and frustration for a customer. Now, I want to make sure that you understand there are lots of dealers around and there's lots of opinions, just like there's lots of coins. Of the 126 modern commemoratives, both in the mint states and the proofs, there's lots of choices in old coins, just like there's lots of choices in new coins. 144 older commemoratives, $1 quarter, $1, the rest are all half dollars. And folks, you've got to have somebody who understands the nuances of the market. You look online and pick a price and say, you took advantage of me, is hogwash. And I'll defend it to the death. Not just for myself, but for my competition. There's a reason why certain coins get a plus, certain coins get a star, certain coins get a green CAC sticker, and others get the gold CAC sticker. This is the time where you write down some notes, you make some choices, we pull it all together so that we come up with a sound plan and we move forward. We implement the plan. We don't just day trade and look at what's going on and keep notes, because you never get ahead that way. Now, it's going to be a more interesting show when I come back. I find it very interesting. One of the articles I read today talks about the 1933 $20 St. Gaudens gold pieces. Now, the lawyer for the Langboard family lost a decision in federal court back in August of 2011. And the decision was to confiscate the coins. 10 years earlier, a coin came in from England. The attorney who handled the Langboard case handled that coin. That was a world record at the time, nearly $7.6 million for a coin that had belonged to King Farouk. My point in bringing all of this up, do coins get out the back door at the Treasury or the U.S. Mint? That's obvious. I've handled a couple of them. And Tommy Bolak is a gentleman who owns the Sacagawea mules. The person who made them was a Mint employee who got them out into, quote, circulation, so to speak. He didn't circulate them, but the guy ended up going to jail for counterfeiting coins. Ultimately, he was a Mint employee. Mr. Bolak is a wildcatter and has accumulated most of them. And so my point is that there are certain acts that happen that are clearly illegal, and there are others that are not. And for me, I want to make sure that you understand that when we put together a portfolio of miscellaneous material, high-end material, low-end material, trading material, barterable material, folks, you can go spend $7 million on a coin. It's auction quality. You can go buy collector vehicles and spend hundreds of thousands of dollars. They're not necessarily liquid. You don't want to get in a fire sale. So making sure that you move around an adequate amount of your portfolio is important. One of the things that I find to be the most interesting is that people who steal sell for a fraction of what the material's worth. That's why you talk to and you consult with somebody who's got the experience. I hope to be able to do that with you. Now, I'll be in the office today. Call 281-548-2646. That's 281-548-2646. You can call toll-free 877-705-2646. When you call, hit option 0. That way you get a live voice. If I'm not on the phone, I'll be more than happy to take your call and chat with you. Or email me. That's Brett, B-R-E-T-T, at thegoldexchange.net. Well, folks, there are over 500 shows between radio shows that I used to do and my podcasts. No real commercial messages ever. So you can go through a show in between. Well, now the podcasts run about 20 minutes a piece. Sometimes I'll go a little longer, a little shorter. But if you go to the radio shows that I've done over the past few years, those are 40-minute shows. You don't have to fast forward through a commercial. That's not how they were posted up. So it's an opportunity to take notes, write down questions. If you don't have any questions, then you should be placing orders and diversifying some of your portfolio. Simple stuff. I never try to get off my podcasts without thanking Texas Children's Hospital, the Downs Clinic, and the Ronald McDonald House. Now, the Meyer Center is located south of Fannin. Dr. Ostermeyer has had to move her facility because of the amount of help to all of the different disabilities and the children that visit on an annualized basis. If you go to themeltdown.com, click on the donation link, you can put in your information, you'll get a receipt, but those are funds, tithe or an offering, please, that you can direct directly to the Downs Clinic, and they're very close to my heart. My son Jason has mild Downs. The Ronald McDonald House at Texas Children's is 20 rooms on the 4th floor, 40 to 60 people a night. They will certainly take a donation through my website, or you can call if you can provide a donation or even a hot meal for 40 to 60 people. Please call 832-824-8600. That's 832-824-8600. Nancy Allen and her staff would be more than happy to help arrange things with you. Folks, I appreciate the doctors, nurses, staff, and the volunteers at Texas Children's, at all the hospitals throughout the medical center, throughout the world, because children need the love and attention that we can provide. Anyway, I hope you have a blessed day. We'll be back this afternoon sometime, I hope, between 2 and 3. God bless you. Have a good morning. We'll see you then.